Good afternoon. Welcome to Committee of the Whole for February 20th, 2024. Kim, may we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Council President Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Any changes to the agenda? If none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, first up, we have approval of minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next up, payment of bills. We should have all seen that in our emails. May I have a motion for that, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next up, we have our accesso ShoWare presentation, Tim Higgins. Welcome, Tim.
Council President, council members, thank you. It's our biannual update for accesso ShoWare Center. Oh, great. Sorry, a little small. I didn't want you to see these numbers because they are good numbers. Go right to this. This is our lead income statement for the end of 2023. This is not an audited number as of yet, but these numbers will hold true. We're comfortable with this number. At the very bottom, where it's yellow, our budget was for 2023 was $973,575. We did better with budget by $230,000. $230,000. We came in at $742,674. So we beat budget by $230,000. As I told you last time we got together, when we create a budget, it's what we have on the books, not what. There's not a lot of what ifs in there for the upcoming year. But throughout the year, we do work very diligently on getting shows and other events. And this year we had 10 WHL playoff games, which we did not budget for, which helped that number. Just a quick event analysis, going back to 2018. You can see 2018 you had 220 events. 2023 we had 169 events. The 2018 the 220 events, and the 2019 the 214 events. About 60 of those events were based on Greater Seattle Hockey League, which we rent the facility out on our dark nights. We had approximately 50 to 60 events. COVID hit, that went away. They're starting to come back. So as you can see, we're starting to see an increase with those additional events. In 2020, COVID, but the movie theater, I didn't do that. 2020, we had 128 events, but that was part of the movie theater, which we did approximately 70 event days. In 2021, 185. That's including the vaccination site. So every day we considered an event because there was revenue we did receive from that. Attendance by fiscal year. If you can look, again, you can pretty much tell where we were at. COVID hit, where we went, and we're starting to climb back up. 2022 to 23, there's a 40% increase on attendance. Event days, sorry, what do we got here? Events. There you go. Gross ticket sales. This number really probably doesn't mean a lot to you as it relates to our financials, but it tells me how the business is running, what we're doing, ticket prices. You can see back, well, in 2018, we had 18 concerts. In 2023, we had 10 concerts. There were 2 concerts that canceled, and I'll talk about that later. Significant revenue was missed with those concerts canceling. But you can see where ticket prices for concerts have increased significantly based on the number of events. 2018 having 18 concerts, and 2023 only having 10 concerts. So we can tell pretty much how ticket prices are increasing. Food and beverage. This is our significant.
Sorry, I think Councilmember Fincher has a question.
Oh.
So you had 2 missed shows. What happens with the cost? Are we reimbursed costs, or do we lose any money? Are we made whole? What happens?
So we don't lose any money. Our expenses, whatever they are, will be are reimbursed to us from the promoter. So there is no loss. There is no revenue, but there is no loss. The promoter, on the other hand, will take a loss. We won't take the loss.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks. Food and beverage sales, from 2022 to 2023, there was actually a 40% increase, which correlates with our 40%, surprisingly correlates with our attendance increase of 40%. 85%, approximately food and beverage sales accounts for about 85% our revenue for an event, sometimes 100%. Food and beverage is where we truly make our money. We've been investing back into our food and beverage, our concessions, our opportunity to increase our revenue. Sometimes I look at us as a restaurant, and that's where the money's at. There's no, well, I shouldn't say there isn't anymore, but net rent is pretty much becoming less and less because of the competition in the market. So we have to increase that somewhere. So through facility fees and revenue, food and beverage revenue, that's where we make our money.
Tim?
Yes.
The significant increase in the food and beverage, is that due to, was there like more options available, or was that just a raise in price?
Thank you. We went cashless. We found we're going cashless. So in 21, when we opened up in late 21, we went cashless. We did raise prices. We are charging 10% tax now on top, instead of it used to be rolled into the food and beverage number. But going cashless, that significantly increased our revenue.
Right.
People spend more money with the credit card than cash. So, and there's been zero pushback on going cashless. We thought there might be something, but everybody has a card and it works well. So, as you can see. Income, that should say net income. Our net income for the year was $3,613,000. Our expenses, indirect expenses, $4,356,000. A majority of that, of course, when we have an increase in income, there is going to be an increase in indirect expenses. But that's a little more than what should have been increased. But that's due to labor costs, increase in labor costs, and there was some emergency repairs that we didn't account for. Building being 15 years old, we're seeing some emergency repairs now. Some shows we'll talk about that we did throughout the year that were successful, sold out shows, a few of them. Ice Cube, our favorite, sold out show. Tim McGraw, sold out show. It was a great show. Odyssey Radio, who does their hometown holiday show, brought this show to us. It was called their Throwdown. It was a great show. This one here, just wanted to show the picture. It was a great event. It was Jurassic World. We did 16,000 tickets over 7 shows. It was in June. It was a good show. It was a great show that we had. So, Hometown Holiday is another great show we have every year, country show. I just like to show the picture of the sold-out event at the building. It's always a great picture. So, talk a little bit about the canceled events I mentioned earlier. We actually had 4 canceled events, 2 significant events that canceled. They canceled the day of the show. Sold out shows canceled. One was Junior H, hip hop artist. The other one was Grupo Adesigado. It's a Latin artist. Both canceled through illness. Another one was based on ticket sales were very poor, not just us, it was across the board. And another one, WizKid, the band broke up, so just before the show. So, and that's where I was saying that we missed out on significant revenue. You know, probably to the a good couple $100,000 that we would have realized. So, some capital projects and repairs throughout the year. This one I know you all heard about. This was significant. Our ice plant failed. And this was in June, luckily after hockey season. The picture on the left is that's the new piece that had to be replaced. The original, it's similar to what failed is what that piece looked like. That took 15 weeks to build. That is not a shelf item. But just another picture to the right is the part of that system shows you what helped add to the degradation of the inside of the system. I don't know if you can see there's a baffle in the middle. That baffle broke off. And this piece should last between 20 and 25 years. It didn't make it. That's probably one of the problems right there that added to the problem. So we had to go again after 20 years. I did budget for this repair in 2025. It was $450,000. Unfortunately, this repair came in at $776,000 due to the nature of the rental we had to bring in. The repair was $450,000, but the rental was a good close to $400,000. There's the rental that we had to have in place for 3 months. And Councilmember Fincher, you toured that. You had a chance to see it. Yeah. Just a couple pictures of what we went through to make this work. We had to take a wall out to get the system out. Another capital project, our self-checkout. Finally, this goes online Saturday night for a hockey game. So this will finally kick this in. There was some issues with infrastructure that kind of stretched it out a couple months in getting this up and running, but we'll start this on Saturday. Concession stands, this year we put a little bit back into the building with rebranding our concession stands. As you can see, we went for the northwest look, some wood, some rock on the bottom. We have 4 concession stands. This year we did the front 2 concession stands. Next year we will approach the two grills in the back. It's kind of a picture with it open. If you can look to see, that's called Mountain High. In the background, there's the mountains. Actually Mount Rainier in the background. You can see that in the back. So our audio system has been life cycle replacement. It's been failing almost every game. We've been replacing parts, throwing money at it. Amplifiers. Finally, contract has been awarded with scheduled completion for August 31st. A company called CTI who's going to be doing the work. So we upgraded our lighting system, our sports lighting system. This is all LED. We did install this back in 2017. When we installed it, we engineered it, we looked at it. When it got installed, we couldn't achieve the lumens we anticipated at the time. And at that time, we didn't have the funds to go any further. Now we have the funds with the SVOG money and capital money. It was only eight additional lights. Now if you go online for streaming, you come to a game, it's NHL quality. It's really sharpened the look of the building. Our marquee, got that installed this year. I think we talked about this last time I was here. That's been installed and it's up and running, and it's good for another 13 years. think that's, the Thunderbirds, on their way to the WHL Championship. Our Thunderbirds played an additional 10 playoff games through April and May. That's the additional 10 we don't budget for. They won the WHL Championship, which I know you're all aware. This game was won at home on May 19th. The win secured a spot in the 2023 Memorial Cup, hosted in Kamloops, BC, and we lost to the Quebec Ramparts in the final series. So congratulations to our Thunderbirds. That was a great run in 2023. The Stars, for those of you that have not been to a Stars game, please come out. It's a great sport. Could use your support. Once you are there, it's very affordable, and it's just a fun sport. So we've been doing this for 6 years now, and but the crowds are pretty much holding. We like to see better crowds, and once people come out, they see the sport, and it's a fun sport. So 2024 again. So 2024, our budget projection for 24 is a $973,000 loss. Pretty similar to what we looked at this year. We're not going to see the playoff games we saw this year with the T-Birds. They are right now currently in last place. We're closing in on the end of the year. I don't know what's going to happen. We're close. Maybe we can win a few more games and get into the playoffs. But I can tell you, I was in LA last week at a conference called Polestar. Agents, promoters, being relevant, have been very active in the last couple of weeks because of that visit with promoters and agents. It looks like the third and fourth quarter are going to do very well this year for us. So hopefully that can make up for those 10 playoff games. That's all I have right now. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. Hey, thanks for the report, Tim. I'm just curious on your events and your year-end targets. I mean, 2018 is probably where we want to go. You're making some progress in 2023. Do you see 2024 possible from the event as well as the financial, reaching the 2018 goal for 2024?
I do. On the concert side, I do. I think the 2023, I said we had 14 events, 4 canceled, 10 shows. I believe we can do 14, 15 strong concerts this year.
Yeah. I just want to make one other comment. I was down at Kent Station last Friday and taking my family down to eat at Duke's. And I tell you, there was a Thunderbird game, and we barely got a seat. And then the restaurant outside, it was all packed. People standing outside, they're waiting to get in. So I just think we as councilmen, we got to keep in mind that, what ShoWare brings into the Kent Station. I know way back, we looked at the revenue. I think, Kurt, we looked at way back the revenue that was coming into the Kent Station based on ShoWare, because it was millions and millions of dollars. So I think as we go forward, big investment in ShoWare. We started this year. We need to continue to invest into ShoWare. And I think when we look at the big picture, really what it's done for the city of Kent and the Kent Station. So it was really nice to see so many people out and about in every restaurant. People staying outside, eating outside, because they couldn't get in. So thank you.
Thank you. There's if I can make a comment on that, Drew, the manager at Mama Sortini's, Drew Caney, used to work for us. And I was in there a couple months ago and I saw Drew, and he says, I never knew what this building does for Kent Station. He said it is incredible. And then on another note, I was in Panera Bread, and I always ask the question, hey, how do you all do during events? And there were a couple of young kids at the counter, and they said, ShoWare events, we try not to be on the schedule during ShoWare events. And I said, why? He was too busy. So, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Council President. I thank you for the time that you took showing me around over there. one of the things I appreciated was the upgrade for the new food stations and having the setups where you can go in. I go to the Mariner games, and so it's nice to be able to see those there. My granddaughters were fine either way. They always get the hot dogs, and so they love it over here. But I was glad to see that we're going to be able to just use our card, nice and slick, not having to wait, saves time, and the selection that you're putting in there also. So thank you.
We find that, we need to invest back into the building for our guests, so.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Councilmember Fincher. And I want to say thank you for taking time out to give this presentation to us. And we, I know, speaking for myself, I know how much a positive impact ShoWare, accesso ShoWare Center has on our community. It's a space that we need, definitely, and a space that we will, at least I will keep investing in. So I thank you, and I know my son works there now, so
Yes.
he loves working there as his part-time job.
Busy.
Yeah, he's very busy. Wi-Fi, that's the other question.
So we're working with, so in Mike, this conversation you and I need to have in the future. So, but yeah, we're working on something called DAS, D-A-S. It's not Wi-Fi, it's more cellular service. There's a company called Mobility. It's just contractual stuff, and Adam Long has been working through the contract right now, which we're going to be involving City IT here shortly. But it's been a long time in coming. We agree. It's just, the cost for Wi-Fi, if we were just to go Wi-Fi direct, is probably close to $1 million. So we're trying to find other ways around it, and I think there's an avenue. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was my only question, and thank you so much for your presentation.
Good.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I will tell you, maybe I know you talked to Mike, but he pretty smart dude. Mike can help you guys out with that Wi-Fi
Yeah,
stuff.
no. We've been working with.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. No other questions.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Parks, Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, we have two items tonight. First, we have Dana Wilk is going to come up and talk about North Meridian Park.
Madam Chair, Council President, Council members, thank you for having me tonight. I'm Dana Wilk, one of the project managers on the Park Planning and Development team. I'm here to present on item D, which is the Consultant Services Agreement with MacLeod Reckord for the North Meridian Park Conceptual Plan in the amount of $120,809. North Meridian Park was originally constructed back in 1984. It's located on East Hill, adjacent to Meridian Middle School, as you can see from this graphic of the existing site. It's a 35-acre park with 2 ball fields shown in blue and about 29 acres of natural area shown in green. It's listed as a near-term priority in the 2022 Parks and Open Space Plan and is identified as a significant project to achieve 2 important system-wide initiatives. One of those initiatives is partnership with Kent School District. The other is related to the practice cricket pitch that was launched as a pilot project to determine demand and the need for a formal space. Since the pilot project was launched in 2022, the southernmost ball field has been regularly reserved as a tournament location for the Northwest Cricket League. These photos include some of the gorgeous native species that are amongst beautiful established trees and a diverse and rich ecology at the park. Currently, the natural area has unmarked social trails, and through the conceptual planning phase, a key objective is activation of the forested area of the park through developing trail networks, creation of environmental education opportunities, and the potential of a disc golf course. We'll be conducting a robust analysis, design, and public engagement process, and explore opportunities with project partners so that in fall of 2024, we can have a preferred design alternative that will guide future final design and construction. We were very fortunate with the outcome of our consultant selection process. We advertised the request for qualification last September and received 7 submittals with really strong quality from our consultant community. We shortlisted to 3 firms and conducted interviews in December, and we're grateful to have Kent School District joining our interdepartmental experts on the evaluation panel so that we had the breadth of perspective in the selection process. The firm that we selected is the same firm that did the original design for the North Meridian Park and has recently demonstrated their exceptional project partnership expertise on Van Doren's Landing. We're thrilled with the quality of design and subconsultant qualifications that will support us in serving our community to create an exciting neighborhood park with extraordinary opportunity for a regionally acclaimed destination. That's all that I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Dana. This is really needed, especially in this area of the city, for them to have some investment into the park properties. So this is great news. Do we have any questions or comments for Dana? No? Okay. One moment. All right, I'm going to read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign a consultant services agreement with MacLeod Reckord, PLLC, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Okay, up next, it says that I have Carrie up here to talk about Campus Park.
Hello, everybody. How are you all today? As this sign says, I am here to talk about the Campus Park Consultant Services Agreement. This is Campus Park. You can see it in green. It was originally purchased as part of a project with the Kent Meridian High School to build French Field. And it's across from Mill Creek Canyon and the American Legion. This is what the park looks like currently. There was at one point a house in this area that was removed, and this is where we're proposing that a new playground would be to help support active use in this park for the neighboring apartment complexes that currently do not have a lot of recreational opportunity in this area. So like the consultant services selection process that Dana just talked to you about, the RFQ for this was also done in September. The interviews were held slightly later in November. Contract negotiations just ended, and the consultant that was selected was AHBL, and they were selected because of their deep resume of work with the Kent School District and their robust community engagement that they have had success on in other communities. The conceptual design contract is $107,713. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions or comments for Carrie? Go ahead.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. What is the timeline for design process and then?
So it'll be just slightly later than the North Meridian parks, so that we're not running into over engaging with the public this
Like
year.
next year?
So it'll probably be at the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign a consultant services agreement with AHBL Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Michaud. Okay, now Public Works, Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Council President. We're going to start off with Cheryl Wilcox, who's going to talk to us about a condemnation ordination.
Hi, everyone. This is my third meeting in a row with all of you, so you probably know who I am at this point. This presentation will be a little bit longer than the last one, and hopefully it's just as exciting. The city must acquire property rights to construct the Mill Creek Reestablishment project. Mill Creek is a slow-moving urban creek channel that meanders through the Green Valley corridor. Over the years, channel sediment has accumulated, reducing creek capacity and contributing to an increase in flooding events during winter months. The floodwaters cover streets and properties, disrupting traffic and contributing to non-point source pollution by conveying untreated pollutants found on ground surfaces directly back to the creek. And I'm going to show you some photos here from left to right, some of the flooding that we've experienced. This is in 2019. On the left, the far left, is looking north from Smith Street, just south of Mill Creek Middle School. The middle photo is looking west from Temperance Avenue, facing Mill Creek, which is just on the other side of the guardrail there. And the third one is looking south at the Wendy's parking lot, and Mill Creek is adjacent to Wendy's. Here's a little bit more flooding. Looking at these clockwise from the upper right, they show James Street looking west with Mill Creek Middle School on the left. Going down to the bottom right, looking at to the southwest, this is Mill Creek Middle School field and the track. Creek is to the left. And then to the lower left, it's another shot of James Street looking west. As we know, it gets closed during these events. And then upper left corner is Mill Creek looking north, just north of James Street. During these flooding events, channel sediment is carried through the creek where it blankets native riparian vegetation and allows for non-native invasive plants to establish. The purpose of this reach, the Kent Memorial Park Reach portion of the project, is to improve the creek and stormwater conveyance and flood storage capacity of the creek, while also providing benefit to the local ecology. Specifically, the project will reduce the risk of local annual flooding along Mill Creek by removing channel sediments deposited by upstream erosion, increasing creek capacity, and allowing for city stormwater infrastructure, the treatment and flow control facilities, to operate as they're designed. This will keep roads open to traffic, keep businesses open, reduce risk of flooding to neighboring residents, and restore the local ecology in Mill Creek. Staff, meaning my team and I, and engineering, our project engineers, have been communicating with the impacted property owner, and we've been negotiating the necessary property acquisition. In fact, we spoke to them today. Because efforts to date have been kind of unsuccessful or a little slow, the city needs to maintain the schedule necessary for completion of the project. So we just want to have this ordinance in place in case condemnation proceedings become necessary. Having this in place will reduce the time necessary or required to file condemnation proceedings later should they become necessary, which we really hope they don't, and I truly do have hope that they won't. As required by state law, notice of council's anticipated consideration of the ordinance was mailed to the affected property owner on January 24th, 2024, and notice was also published in the Kent Reporter. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for that. So with this condemnation ordinance, that does not mean, as you were saying, that the property is going to be taken, that we are going to be having that property to do with work for the Mill Creek project. It's so that we can stay on the timeline in case things do not work out as we hope they will, that we come to an agreement with the party, correct?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Questions?
Yeah, question. It might be for Kurt and team. I don't know, but this flood here, we had a staff from the school came to us last year along with the student, and I think you guys are going to work with the school. And so, where are we at with that? And does this year? I think it was 2 phases, right? One phase was this year. I think the other phase was trying to take care of the flood. So, Chad, Kurt, somebody. I'm just curious. You brought back memories here, so I'm just curious where we at with this year.
Great question. We're right in the middle of discussions with the school on working through a federal ask to raise the the field.
Yeah.
And then also to do the work we'll do the work in the creek to try and get flooding reduced. And then we're working with the school on a joint ask to raise the field at Mill Creek Middle School.
What's the timeline? I mean, are you just getting started in the middle of it, or things like this take for years when you talk about the federal government, or what are we looking at?
So we've been talking between the district and ourselves since last summer.
Okay.
We talked previously with them for a number of years at the prospect of working through the issues with Mill Creek itself. But the discussions to raise the field and to try and approach together the federal government for an ask was more just in the last 4 or 5 months. And so time frame, ask for the money, see if we can get it as soon as possible, and then go into design and construction. It's hard to put a time frame on. It just depends on when we get the money.
And I think there was 2 phases. First phase was this year, us cleaning it up, right? And then after that, then we'll go.
Yeah, all things, if we can stick to plan, the plan is to clean the creek out this summer. We got good news from the Corps of Engineers that they would allow us to clean out the creek based on the fact that it's a habitat enhancement.
Okay.
For a number of years, they told us that we would need an individual corp to get that done. And so what we've repeatedly told the public and council, we thought that would be a multi-year project. The Corps looked at it through a different lens and said, you know what, this is an improvement, and see it as a maintenance and a habitat improvement project. So go ahead and do it. So we're moving as quickly as we can to get that done this summer.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate that, bud.
Anyone else? John, or Councilmember.
Okay. Chad, I wish you would have stayed up because I wanted to ask you a question. How you doing?
Good. Sorry to run off.
Okay. So what are some of the problems we have and why some of the owners don't want to negotiate? I mean, what are the reasons? I mean, are we offering them money that's not acceptable or what?
Yeah, and this has been, and probably I should let Cheryl talk to this more than I could because she's been directly involved, but I'll keep talking to Cheryl.
Okay, Cheryl.
I got your back. The owners, actually, they've been very good conversations. I wouldn't say they've been, there's no animosity. It's just that there's been discussions between the ownership. We'll say it's a group, it's a couple. And they're trying to decide if they want to sell us an easement or sell us a greater portion of the property or exactly what they want to do. And so we've just had a lot of back and forth. If you've been out to the property, it used to be where the Fat Bat was located, which was a batting cage. It hasn't been in use for a number of years, and it's been just kind of, the property's been held for quite a while. It's not actually in active use.
Okay, so that means then the city hasn't discussed anything about eminent domains producing with that?
Yes, we have.
And we talked that over with the owners and stuff?
As recently as today.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been a pretty constant conversation for about the last 8 years. Yeah.
And I take it they're not too pleased with that, right?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say they're not pleased. It's, I think just depends on how people approach their property ownership. This is more of an investment property than, it's not a house or not their business, operating business. They have a business, there's a business out front, but the area that we're talking about right now has no operating business on.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chad.
Anyone else? In that case, I move to adopt ordinance number 4486, authorizing the condemnation of property rights necessary to construct the Mill Creek Reestablishment Project, Kent Memorial Park Reach.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. It has passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next one, we're going to have David Payne, who's going to come and just give us some information, again, on more transportation opportunities, grant opportunities.
Madam Chair, Council President, Council members, good to see you again. A small update to our January presentation on potential grant candidates for 2024. Again, 2024 being an even year is a heavy grants application year for us. We didn't have all of the grant application call for projects information available from PSRC. Now that information is more available, so we can come back and talk about 7 of the grants that we'll be applying for. And in between the last presentation and this one, the Transportation Improvement Board also presented an early application, so we'll be providing some information on that as well this evening. Again, David Payne, City Transportation Planner. So if I didn't introduce myself. All of these projects that I'll be presenting tonight are included in both the Transportation Master Plan for the City of Kent from 2021 and are current in the Transportation Improvement Program that was updated as of last year. So the first category, PSRC, Puget Sound Regional Council, they have a number of projects, candidate categories that they'll be opening shortly. The first that we presented in January is the preservation category. And we have 2 projects that we're proposing to as candidates for that category. The first at the top of the screen is the South 196th Street Preservation Project. That's from approximately 2,000 feet west of 68th Avenue, or State Route 181, to 84th Avenue South. These projects both have a significant amount of truck traffic, and they which is one of the scoring criteria, and also they serve the manufacturing industrial center. So we believe that they would be good candidates to nominate. The second is the South 212th Street Preservation from Green River Bridge to 72nd Avenue North. This is the second time that we've applied for this project, and we think that the second time's the charm for this particular one. The second category of projects is the regional competition. So in the past, Kent has been very successful with the Meet Me on Meeker category of projects. And this particular competition is a regional one, so the competition's pretty heavy across the region, 81 jurisdictions, something like that. So in order to nominate a project that is going to be regionally competitive, we're recommending the remaining segment of the original Meet Me on Meeker promenade. So that's from the Interurban Trail to the, it should say, 6th Avenue South intersection. So that's the project that we're recommending that combines 2 projects that are currently in the TIP, put them together, and we have a PSRC project. There's also a category for the PSRC. It's called the countywide level of competition. And you'll notice at the top that Meet Me on Meeker is also listed there. We're trying to cover our bases. We're going to, if we don't succeed at the regional level, we would also apply at the countywide level. So we're also putting that project forward as a candidate. And then looking forward, another project from the Transportation Master Plan and the TIP is the access to the Central Business District from the east, or from Earthworks Park to downtown connection. So this would be for a as yet to be determined multimodal connection from Earthworks Park into downtown Kent, where we'd be applying for design-only money, which would also allow us to do a more robust engagement process that perhaps one as robust as led to the Meet Me on Meeker project. So we would, if awarded those funds, we would love to launch into that process. Second and last on the list for this category, the Willis Street, or SR 516, the north side of the roadway between Washington and Naden does not currently have a raised separated sidewalk, so we would be seeking funds to reconstruct that portion if successful. And then lastly but not least, just in the last couple of weeks, TIB released a complete streets call, and for early completion, and we have a project in development for this summer that we think would fit neatly into their competition. So this would be for 132nd Avenue Southeast to construct separated walkways from approximately 228th to 240th Street. So that's about, all told, about $11 million worth of transportation projects. And the local match, should we be so fortunate as to be awarded, would vary depending on the categories. Some of the PSRC projects are 50-50 match. Some are a 20% federal match. And then the TIB is a little bit closer to perhaps 50-50. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to be asking for, but we think that we can be competitive. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the project nominations or candidates that I can.
For all of those PSRC ones, do they allow staff time to count as part of the match, or does it vary?
In these particular projects, for the design, I believe that they are not counting. There are other federal grants that we apply for that do allow staff time match, such as the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, but I do not believe that these do.
Questions? Councilmember?
community today where the priorities are when it comes to streets. It's going to be the projects like the complete streets and the safe pedestrian pathways. So I'm wondering why, you know, I'm assuming that there's something that's causing these to be concentrated.
Absolutely, and you're so right, and that's one of our challenges with so many different funding sources is trying to match up the projects that we want with the available funding criteria and sort of mixing and matching. The area that's shown just a little bit pale in highlighted in pink on the map, that's the Regional Growth Center, the PSRC designated Regional Growth Center. One of the other items that I believe you'll be hearing more about tonight, I want to say, I'm looking over to my left corner, is the Downtown Strategic Action Plan. So that's tied back to the Regional Growth Center designation, perhaps if we meet the criteria, expanding that. But heretofore, the Regional Growth Center and the of Kent Downtown and the Manufacturing and Industrial Center, those are two of the regional focuses that allow us to sort of tap into those PSRC funds.
For the public, it's not like we can take money, we can't apply as safe streets for school pedestrians to something that has criteria that
These particular,
manufacturing it.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councilmember. Anything else? Thank you very much, Mr. Payne. And now, Christina Neff is going to come up and give us some information. The Boeing Walk Recreation and Habitat Enhancement Cooperative Watershed Management Grant application. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Christina Neff. I'm with Public Works Environmental. So I'm back again to talk about Boeing Rock Recreation and Habitat Enhancement, and a new grant that we're looking to apply for from King County Federal Flood Control District. In January, I was requesting acceptance for funds for the Salmon Recovery Funding Board and the King County Parks Levy, which we were awarded for the feasibility study and some conceptual plans. So this new grant would be for significant progress on the project design and the permitting of the project following the use of those grants. So this is the project location. As I've said, it's about a mile of the East River Bank on the Green River between South 200th and South 212th Street. And all the habitat features, the large weed debris structures, the native plants, and then some passive recreation improvements that would be developed by the project are avoiding the levee in this area. They're avoiding anything with the existing levee and would allow for any future improvements along that section of the levee. We're partnering with the Parks Department for development of the project to make sure that the habitat and all the recreation uses are balanced in this area. So this new funding would be for several planning elements. There's some project administration. The project design would be, from that previous grant, we had the 10% conceptual design, so this would be to 65% plans, specifications, and a cost estimate. We'd be applying for any of the required permits for the project and continuing some stakeholder coordination that would be ongoing throughout that. And yeah, so a total of $627,690 would be requested from King County Flood Control District for that CWM grant. There's no match required for these funds, so that's taken care of. And then the application is due February 28th, so we're working on that, trying to get that in. So if you had any questions for me. Happy to.
I do not. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Good job. Let's hope we get that. Thank you very much. That is it for Public Works.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher, and thank you to all the staff. Always doing an amazing job bringing grants and all the information needed for our city, so I always appreciate that. I think we all appreciate the grants that we receive to work on projects in the city. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we're at the end of the meeting. We are adjourned until 5:15 p.m. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to Kent City Council Workshop for February 20th, 2024. We have two exciting items on our agenda today. First is Downtown Subarea Plan Update Project Intro. Kristen Halsworth. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. It's good to be here. I'm here to talk a little bit about our update for the Downtown Subarea Action Plan. You actually approved this contract last time you met, so thank you for that approval. We are kicking off and working on the finalizing of the project schedule. This, as you may recall, is something that the city has a long history of investing and planning for our downtown. You'll see this is under the comprehensive plan branding and logo right now because a sub-area plan is actually part of the comprehensive plan. It's just a little bit more specific to a specific geography in the area. And so we are working together with our consultants for the comprehensive plan update to make sure that we are updating the downtown plan as well. We will be having more branding and conversations around how we advertise downtown in this plan going forward, but for now, we're linking them together this way. So I'm going to start out tonight just with a little bit of a background information. You all probably know this, but wanted to recap why the downtown sub-area plan is so important and what is its significance to the city. So aside from being a great destination and somewhere that has a lot of historic value to the city, it also has regional significance. And so PSRC, or the Puget Sound Regional Council, is our 4-county planning organization. And they really set the vision in the same way that we have a comprehensive plan for our city. The member organizations of PSRC work together to set a consistent vision for the 4-county area. And so that growth strategy, which would be called Vision 2050 or their equivalent of a comprehensive plan, relies on this idea of regional growth centers. And these regional centers have the idea of leveraging the transportation investments as well as housing to really get more of an efficiency of development of our services and infrastructure around those combined investments and seeing growth concentrated in those areas. So throughout the 4-county region, there are actually 30 regional growth centers. And then they also have something called industrial and manufacturing centers. And there are 10 of those. In Kent, we're very fortunate. We have one of the regional growth centers, or you may hear it called RGC. And then we also have a manufacturing and industrial center, sometimes called a MIC. So really, again, the goal is to concentrate growth in these areas, both in terms of transportation and housing, and then also for economic opportunity and prosperity for the region. So this is an image of those centers as they're dispersed. One of the new things that's happening in Vision 2050 is also talking not just about the county-wide or the multi-county 4-county region of centers, but now counties themselves are designating locations. And so we actually have a provisional location off of Benson and Kent Canely that we'd applied to before my time that we've talked about, and that is a whole separate process, but there are kind of now a hierarchy of the 4-county centers and then county-wide centers as well. These centers are really important because they also influence transportation funding and other funding that flows from the federal government down to PSRC and then is a competitive application process. So one of the main requirements in order to be getting those extra grant dollars, I know David was here earlier talking to you about grant applications. If we have a regional growth center designation and we have the plan certified, meaning it's consistent with the overarching plans and goals and policies for PSRC, that makes us highly competitive for those dollars, especially as they relate to transportation and infrastructure dollars. And so over the last couple of years, we've averaged about $10 to $15 million every 2 years in that additional funding, which has been, I think we can look and see some of the benefits of things like Meeker and other projects that are well underway and working to actually be plans implemented into Vision. So our downtown sub-area plan, again, we want to make sure that we are maintaining and updating to be consistent. PSRC, when we did our last certification, it was under Vision 2040, and we did that update in 2013. So now they've advanced to Vision 2050, and so we need to update our plan to make sure that we've made the appropriate updates to stay in compliance for that certification. The update requirement, originally we were told it started January 2025. So we were buckling up and getting ready to kind of run to the races to get this plan done. They just refined their process and are in the process of scoping a little bit more. So we actually have a little bit more breathing room, which is great because it builds in a little bit more time for engagement with the public as well. So mid-2025 is our adoption date that they've set for us. Again, current DSAP or Downtown Subarea Plan was adopted in 2013, so it's about 10 years old now, so a good time for a refresh. Rally the Valley, I mentioned, all these centers have to be certified. Rally the Valley already complies because it's so much more recent, and so there's not a lot of dusting off or new changes that we need to do for that plan for it to stay as a manufacturing and an industrial center. So really the focus is going to be on DSAP and getting that recertified. A little bit of the history of the DSAP. Our first plan was the John Graham Plan in 1966. I did not know who John Graham was, but Wikipedia is great, as are all of the other architectural history. John Graham, it was actually John Graham Jr., and he and his father both had architecture firms in the region. And they're most known for the Northgate Shopping Center and other large outdoor facilities. Northgate Shopping Center may not be as competitive as the last one that they did. They actually did the design for the rotating cafe and the concept of the Space Needle. So that actually is their big claim to fame, but really shopping centers is what they became known for down the road. Really, the 1966 plan was talking about enhancing the Kent downtown core, rezoning properties, and diverting through traffic so that there wasn't as many pedestrian and automobile points of intersection. Since then, we have worked closely with our partners, including KDP, which was established in the 90s, to update and maintain this commercial historic area as well as expand it. And we have had 4 additional updates to DSAP since then. The downtown sub-area boundaries are outlined here. It's a little bit this map shows 2 things. So it's the same image. One just shows what's actually happening on the ground. The other shows more of just a parcel level. The red outline shows the study area of the last downtown sub-area plan. So it extends west of Highway 167 and it extends a little bit north. And so we studied a broader area, but the actual designation as a regional growth center is roughly 1 square mile. And you can see it's bounded along Central and Willis, and then 167th, and then it bleeds up into Scenic Hill area just a little bit. Boundaries are something that have come up. We've had a lot of conversations with our partner departments. So we've talked with Public Works, we've talked with Parks, and had some internal and Economic Development Division of what's working well in the plan, where do we identify updates. And it seems like everyone has a little bit different reason for wanting to call downtown downtown. And so that'll be something that we'll be working with and have one of the priorities. It is the official designations by PSRC matter tremendously, and they're tied to actual activity units. And we have to meet a certain threshold. And so we can look at the boundaries of downtown, but we also need to be sure that we're meeting other kind of requirements to make sure we're staying competitive for funding, but then also knowing that different boundaries can serve different purposes for groups. And as long as we're clear on why we have those different boundaries, it's okay. But I think even within our city, we found 5 or 6 different ways that we've characterized downtown. So just having some clarity on that will be important. What's in the current downtown plan? So it is a sub-part of the comprehensive plan. So it does stay consistent with the comprehensive plan. So as we're updating the 2044 plan, we will make sure that as we're updating our housing and our transportation and utilities goals and policies, implementation actions, that we're making sure that the plan itself for the downtown is also being updated and current. It also provides overviews of basic economic, population, and employment trends, as well as growth and expectation priorities. There's, like a comprehensive plan, you'll see those elements within it of specific information around land use, around housing, around transportation. So it does look very similar, it's just in a different scale and detail. The current comprehensive plan has two different SEPA, or State Environmental Policy Act, implementation items to help with streamlining development and incentivizing development downtown. One is a planned action ordinance, and the other is an infill exemption. The Kent Station was done through these SEPA initiatives, and so we revised it when we did the 2013 plan to lift the lids on development and allow more under an analysis that the city did instead of requiring it on a project-by-project basis. Since then, it hasn't been utilized nearly as much as we were hoping or expecting. There's also some other SEPA tools that are actually, we think, much more suited for the city as a whole, as well as downtown, that we'll be exploring in the Kent update for this downtown. The guiding principles, this is, the vision statement is to the right, but I just bolded a bunch of words. When we looked at this as staff and when we were in the scoping phase, we said generally the vision isn't bad. I mean, I don't think, you know, it's things like the heart of Kent, an extraordinary place, economic vitality, memorable experience. I don't think anyone would say these are bad things necessarily, so we don't anticipate the vision changing dramatically, other than recognizing that there are certain priority objectives and things that we may not have just considered in the past or had as much as a priority. And so we will be talking with the community and making sure, going back to talk about this vision, but it's not something that we anticipate veering dramatically from what previous iterations have said. Current themes that were in the 2013 plan: creating strong visual connection between Kent Station and historic downtown, enhancing safety for parks downtown, creating gateways into downtown, and we can see, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the progress and exciting things that have happened since then, seeking opportunities for mixed-use development, and again, the word safety, improving safety around commuter rail station and parks. So since 2013, we have updated our multifamily tax exemption policies and programs to incentivize development downtown. That has been utilized. We've seen developments like Dwell at Kent Station and Madison Plaza Apartments being permitted and open. We also, and when we talk about the connections and entrances into downtown, the Willis Street Roundabout was completed during this period. And we also have progress being made towards the implementing of the quiet zones near the rail lines. So our goals for this update, when we met with staff and had some early listening sessions on what we thought was working well and where there may be opportunities for some change, first and foremost, we said we need to make sure we comply with the Vision 2050 and Centers recertification process. So if we do nothing else, we need to make sure that that happens. It has huge budgetary implications for project delivery for the city as well. The second was to evaluate and reevaluate these boundaries. Again, not necessarily that it's bad to have multiple, but having a clear understanding of who's using what, and that especially, you know, sometimes there's a desire to expand boundaries or to narrow them down for different reasons, but being really clear about why we have certain boundaries and what purpose they serve, and if we adjust them, what that could imply or what the unintended consequences may be. Next update goal, we want to make sure that we're aligning with the comprehensive plan update, and that we're also realistic about our market expectations. And so, you know, it'd be great to say, you know, we already have unlimited height and we already have a lot of things that we've done on the land use and zoning side for downtown. We're not going to go backwards on that. We're not going to take it away. But we also need to be realistic and say the likelihood of 18 to 30-story buildings downtown in the next 5 years, the market's not supporting that. And so really thinking about, as we create this plan, having a realistic vision of what could be accomplished and having level setting with the community, as well as our own staff of what can we do for actual delivery and working with our market partners to see that built. And then we want to identify short-term high-impact action items. So it goes into a lot of conversations around what would be things that we could do in the next 5 to 10 years that we could really see make a difference. So the Willis Roundabout was a great example of that. We're going to talk a little bit about Meet Me on Meeker as another example of, it seems like it's gone on forever, but actually in planning years and timelines, it's been relatively short, but it's made a significant change to the community. We want to coordinate and leverage funding opportunities. So we've already talked a little bit about this, but we have applied for an EPA Brownfields grant to identify sites in downtown as well as Midway where there may be redevelopment opportunities and where cleanup assistance may be needed that could help spur that development option. Other opportunities could be with PSRC, Commerce. There's a variety of different grants and programs, and we want to make sure that we're being strategic when we're applying, that we're thinking about what is in our plan and not kind of looking for projects just for the sake of projects, but that we're looking and thinking about what the funding priorities are going to be. Part of this is David and I work really closely of just setting it up so that when those grants are ready, he has a list to go to build off of. Explore private and public open space and recreational opportunities. This is something we've heard, again, loud and clear, as people love the parks, the existing and new parks that are happening in the city, and then also the connections between those is really important. And then I hinted at this before, but actually removing those SEPA tools, because we have some other strategies that are going to be through the comprehensive plan that will, we think, be a little bit more effective than the older SEPA versions that were available to us at the time. So Meet Me on Meeker, this is not exactly downtown, but it is an entryway and a gateway into our downtown. And so I just wanted to give it a call out and a shout out as something that really has made a large impact in the city, and is something that, you know, when we strategize and put together project lists, we've been very successful for. And a lot of that is not any credit that I can take. I wasn't here for any of it and not in the designation of the center, but having those clear ties to how this really impacts the Regional Growth Center as a whole has made it very competitive. Other gaps to be addressed in the DSAP update. Prioritizing access and opportunity for historically underserved communities, identifying and minimizing gaps in equitable access, especially to parks, aligning with climate goals, highlighting the use of the center in attracting population and job growth, documenting, again, we need to update our population numbers, and expanding our access for those economic opportunities in our downtown. So ideally, downtown would be a place where people live, but also have abundant work opportunities. And then one of the things, how we identified these early on, we did a comprehensive plan gaps analysis and assessment where we looked at all of the new regulatory requirements from the state, PSRC, and county levels of policies, and we identified where in the comp plan we needed to go to meet those requirements. We also did that proactively for DSAP itself. So these probably seem somewhat familiar because we talked about them several months ago about it, but this came out of that gaps analysis as well.
Hey, Madam President.
Go ahead, Councilmember Boyce.
I understand 2 through 6. Okay, what would number 1 look like if you had to visualize? What would that look like? Do you know?
Off the top of my head,
yeah.
I
That's
can't
okay. Yeah.
give you a strategic strategy, but there are many things that we've that are in the goals and policies, especially from PSRC and around the countywide policies, of identifying where there may have been historic practices that may have led to disparate impacts, and so identifying if there are strategies that we at a city level can do to implement and reverse some of those trends. It is something that I think we will be coming to you for a lot for the comprehensive plan as well. So I don't want to presuppose the answers to those, but one of our requirements is to analyze where there are disparate impacts and then identifying where there may be opportunities to specifically target populations that have been excluded.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. So number 1, does that specifically, when you wrote that, were you thinking housing, employment, gambit of things? What were you thinking of? What would your definition for this be for opportunity for historically underserved communities?
Yeah, so that would be across a variety of topics. I think where we most frequently talk in the land use world is on housing and jobs. And so that is, I mean, I think we also talk about access to opportunity. We talk a little bit about in terms of parks as well, and open space and recreational opportunities. That one gets a separate call out, but really this is talking about access to jobs and housing.
Okay, I will let the presentation go. Maybe my next question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thanks. Well, that was it. So this seems to be Kim, I'm sorry. I had updated my slide deck, so I'm going off of a slide deck that's old. My notes say something very different. I did have some guided questions for you all, but I also, they were kind of early opportunities for input. There will be many more. Just asking, how would you define success for the plan and the update process? Do you have any concerns as we go forward about the update? Things that you think you'd like us to be aware of? And then any voices or perspectives that we need to make sure we specifically include. We will, with the comprehensive plan, we've been doing a broad assortment of engagement activities, and we anticipate following a similar model with this project as well. I know there are some very prominent downtown organizations that we will be sure to include, but there's others that maybe are a little bit off of our radar that we want to make sure that we're looping into the conversation as well. So that'll be an open invitation for you to email me groups or organizations or events that you would like us to reach out for. And then last one was just an open, any other feedback, ideas, or information that you want the project team to know early on. So those were in the handout. I had them on a screen so you could kind of pick and choose, but however you'd like to proceed.
All right, we have Councilmember Larmer followed by Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Council President. Kristen, I know a couple things for me that come up when I think about downtown is, thank you. Let me turn my mic on. A couple things that come up for me is that boundary. And I think, when I think about downtown, it goes into Central and, into the east side of Central too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an area that we've, not included or has not gotten our attention. And I know that, there's commerce centers. There used to be like more, more activity along that. And I think it would behoove us to include that in what we're defining as downtown.
Okay.
The other thing is around, I'd be curious what we can do in the comprehensive plan with, I think, there's some prime retail that is being used, for purposes that don't necessarily activate downtown. And what we can do, the businesses that are there today, but like looking ahead in the future, how do we zone, how do we define what businesses are in what parts of downtown that, as they turn over, we're getting more active, something that's more active for the population, because there's, I would like to see more activity in certain parts of downtown. I think it would benefit the city. So that's my input.
Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I feel good about this being in your hand, right? I think you really got a good arm about what this really is, right? And I think for me, as planning is huge when you're talking 10, 15 years out, right? But I think one we need to keep in mind, we are what we are, a very diverse city, right? I hope when we get through and we get where we want to go, that everybody can find themselves a place in this downtown area, right, where we can go and I can feel like this is part of me, or Marley can feel it's a part of her, and Tony feels it's a part of her. So to me, just really think about inclusiveness as we plan this out and make sure everybody feel like they have a welcome place when we end up. So, but I have a lot of confidence in you and feeling pretty good about you helping us steer the ship. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam President.
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Kristen. So I think so far we've done a great job on the gateways and making development easier in downtown by allowing high-rise buildings and giving tax exemptions. We haven't done so great on improved safety. So I'm wondering if we are working with the police department moving forward and seeing what can be done, and or will that even be part of the plan? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think safety, so we did a similar preview to our land use and planning board, and safety came up there as well. I think, for us to say they're totally separate and we're not going to address them together would be naive, because that is something that people think about when they think about wanting to visit a place and whether they want to go back. And so it's something that we will have conversations on. There's some things on the land use side. There's a theory or a strategy called crime prevention through environmental design. There's other strategies for that land use can help by writing in our design standards and some of our goals and policies to help promote that as well. As redevelopment happens, we will see those strategies and we can see them take place. But I know parks, when we talked with parks, they had a lot of questions and conversations about just, you know, desires to see things happening more during more times of the day just for general safety in their facilities as well. And so we will continue to have those conversations and we'll work with PD. It won't be a safety plan, but it will incorporate strategies where we can for that, and then we'll work with them as well.
Councilmember Troutner.
Thank you, Council President. Kind of echoing a little bit of what Councilmember Boyce said, I have no doubt we will end up with a good plan and something that all of us as council members will be able to get behind and support. As a member of the Kent Downtown Partnership, I know you're aware of their thoughts of being able to be part of this process. So when you talk about groups, I know that they're one of the groups that want to be included. They were here at the meeting last week, and unfortunately we had to postpone this portion of the workshop, but I know they'll be definitely watching the recap of this and probably willing to provide some feedback and support as well.
Yes, and I will say they're very excited about this project. We're excited. Kayleen is actually the project manager on this, but she's still coming back from family leave, so we're kind of utilizing her time as we can, but she has had several conversations with KDP. Actually created a subgroup already, and so we're meeting with them in March to talk about kind of where we're at and some of our project scoping, and then also to hear from them about their ideas and ideas for, I think we all want to see a thriving downtown and want to identify really strategic opportunities. So we are meeting with them, and I apologize greatly for their time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Council President. Kaur, Kristen, thank you for being up here. First of all, I want you to know, you probably already do, that I'm the new guy on the dais, so I might ask some dumb questions that you probably already answered. But one of them is, you talked about helping the historically underserved communities. Can you give me an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I think, this is one where I don't want to identify what your strategies collectively, what you think they should be. But there are a lot of conversations, especially around access for housing opportunities and a variety of housing opportunities, and then job training and job entry points. And so those are some areas. What we're doing right now is something called a racially disparate impacts analysis, where we're looking at policies not necessarily that Kent specifically imposed to cause disparate impacts throughout the city, but that may have resulted in that, but also at a larger scale from county and state and federal practices. And so from that, once we identify what some of those disparate impacts are and where there may have been impacts to specific communities, then we'll identify strategies of ways that we could include them and making sure we're intentional in the future prosperity. So I don't want to presuppose what those are because the study is still underway, but it is something that is a high priority, especially it's coming also, it's not just Kent that wants to do that, but PSRC and the county are also, so we're all working with other cities as well to talk about strategies right now.
Okay, so it's like a working project, right?
It sure is.
Okay, so I have a second question too. So how is this project, the DSAP, how is it going to increase the density, and have you included parking with that?
Yeah, okay, so technically I can't say, okay, so currently we've already lifted height limits and a lot of the lot line setback requirements. So theoretically, we say there's unlimited density in downtown already. We know that there's things that constrain that. Financing, market conditions, all of these other things of it doesn't make sense for a project to pencil out. Parking is another one. We do have a LID district already where I'll say people would know this better than I do, but we do have a district where, and there was a project that came forth last year where the previous landowners had paid into a parking district system. And so when they came to redevelop, it was a shell of a building that was underutilized. They're going to be putting new units downtown. They actually don't have to add more parking because they'd already paid into that system. We are going to be looking at parking. The 2013 study did a pretty good evaluation. There hasn't been a very significant amount of change in terms of the private development side since 2013, where it's an entirely new study, but we will be looking back and addressing and looking at parking requirements. And, you know, we do have flexibility in the city. I know some jurisdictions are very, very rigid in their requirements. We've been working closely with Parks and Public Works on the multimodal level of service and concept. So we'll be looking at parking again as well, because we know that that does impact development capacity.
So what I hear you saying, it's an ongoing study, right? And in this study, is there room for expansion or addition as far as parking?
So we are including parking in the study. It's already part of that study. We don't have the results yet. We signed the contract 2 weeks ago. So we have a scope that has been approved to study the parking and to talk about options, but we don't have those solutions yet. This is my first time coming to you, and it'll be about a 1.5 year long process.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. Just want to reiterate, it wasn't specifically for this plan, it was for the wider project, or the comp plan, the entire thing. But I hope that we, in looking at how to help, looking at those, the impacts of some of those disparate activities that have gone on in the past, that we also remember that being able to have a mixed income project is going to be much better for all of us, instead of just like, let's put the poor people and the low income people over there. Yes. It's better for all of us if we have mixed incomes, and also looking at how can we also, and I realize it would be tough here in the downtown, but downtown and all over, how can we increase opportunities for people who want to own homes? Because that's also part of that way to building generational wealth, which we know is definitely something that has been happening not only in the past, but in many ways still continues. So thank you very much. I'd also like us to take a look at, and I think you might have mentioned it, how we can sweeten opportunities for developers to want to take more, not necessarily more risk, but to want to develop in some of the buildings that we've talked about, you know, so that we can see some of the projects we'd like to see also.
Right. Thank you. And I will say, from a planning standpoint, the idea of integrated affordability and diverse options is really important for, I mean, it shows across, you know, for kids performing better in school and everything. So this is something that we agree with and would love to continue. The financing around that is incredibly difficult. And so we're getting creative and working with our developers to identify if there's ways where they can section off and underwrite properties in certain ways or do something, because we don't want to see this is the affordable part of town, and right. these people have affordability covenants, and then this is the market rate side, and never the twain shall meet is not an ideal policy for anyone. And so wanting to explore those opportunities, but there are constraints that are outside our control that we're trying to get creative with right now, and we're testing it out in a couple instances, and we'll see where they get. So thank you.
It's asked, how is it going to make it cheaper, easier, faster to get more density downtown?
Yes.
So thank you. You've answered that tonight too in several of the questions.
All right. My turn now. Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, colleagues, for all the amazing questions, thoughtful questions you have and comments. And Kristen, thank you. Yeah, you're amazing. I think we all agree, and we're looking forward to this plan when it comes to it, and all the conversation we'll be having. The other thing that hasn't been brought up is services. Is the other thing, having those services in downtown area so people don't have to go to Seattle or other places. I think that would be very important for our community. And I have questions about the Kaiser building, but that just brings up, like, I was at the National League of Cities last year, And City of Tempe actually bought grocery stores, empty grocery stores that were not doing so well. And they worked with some developers and some business partners on making it a multi-use building. So they kept the smaller grocery stores downstairs, and they built apartment units, mixed use, basically, and mixed income housing in that building. So I think those kind of options we should probably look at in the next 10, 20 years or so, because we're running out of space. So, and I'm sure you have all those amazing ideas, but just want to throw that out there. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Any other questions or comments for Kristen? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks Framework Plan. Final presentation, Terry Youngman.
Thank you, Council President, Council members. Thanks for having me here tonight. Terry Youngman, Park Planning and Development Manager. And I have the difficult task of trying to distill 2 years of engagement and analysis and planning into about 30 minutes. So I'm going to get to work here. We're here to talk about the Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks Park Framework Plan. Final draft is kind of the milestone we've reached tonight. I want to start with some appreciation for those who've worked on the plan. Park staff and leadership. We've been working really closely with Public Works and Economic and Community Development, who've been instrumental in kind of reviewing the draft and helping it get it to the right place. The community members that came out and supported us in all the engagement and gave us their feedback and really made this a plan that represents the values of the community. And then just a special shout out to World Relief Seattle, who partnered with us on one of our engagement opportunities. I also just want to say it's not just me that's going to present tonight. I tend to do these things a lot, but it was really important to me that my team joined me tonight, because this project really represents a team effort for all of planning and development. So you're going to hear from Brian and Carrie here in a little bit, and then also just wanted to call out Methune, who was our consultant who helped us with the plan. They've really done amazing work. Big picture. We're talking about a 10 and 20-year plan. Actually, it's great to follow up Kristen, because she sets the stage. This is really the kind of stuff we're talking about, is this big visionary work. I want to be realistic about kind of the things we're talking about. We're setting a vision. There's a lot of dollars associated with these things. These are big, great ideas. Being presented in this plan doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be implemented in 10 years or even 20 years. These are goals. We're trying to work towards these. We want to achieve as much as we can, but we also want to be responsible to the funding that we have, both capital and operationally, and the project management resources and capacity that the city has for growth. So just want to kind of caveat all that to say that these are the things we want to look forward to as a vision, but we also know that it's tempered by sort of the current reality. So I just want to pause on this slide for a moment and kind of note how beautiful this is. This is Mill Creek Canyon today. This is before we've done anything. It's an amazing natural space. It has incredible beauty in it, a creek that runs through it, a quiet respite in an otherwise kind of chaotic urban environment. And I think it's something we've kind of forgotten as a city, and I think there needs to be a certain appreciation for the place as it is today before we get into this discussion of what it can be. That it already is something great. All we're really doing with this plan is embellishing the things that are great about it and making the access to it improved. So this is an image of Mill Creek Earthworks Park and Mill Creek Canyon. Orientation is a little bit odd just to make it fit horizontally, but kind of north is in the upper left-hand corner here. As you can see here, it's surrounded by single-family residential, multifamily residential, Kent Meridian High School, commercial development. Our downtown is nearby. It's the gateway between downtown and East Hill, so really an important linkage in the city. It really serves an important role of connecting communities, not only to the park, but through the park to other places. 2-mile stretch of greenbelt, kind of tip to tail, 104.7 acres of parkland that's represented here. I also want to make note of what has happened to date. We've been working with our cleanup contractors who did major cleanup effort a few years ago. Some of the statistics from that cleanup effort: $750,000 spent on cleanup of encampments and trash and debris that was in the canyon. 120 tons or 200,000 pounds of trash that was removed from the canyon. This plan seeks to build upon that momentum that was gained by cleaning up the canyon, and I can safely say that today it remains that way. Our crews are doing a great job of maintaining the space and continuing to keep up with buildup of some of that trash and other negative uses that tend to happen in a space before it's programmed and activated. So why this project? Why now? I would take us back to the 2022 Parks and Open Space Plan. When we look at the top priority investments that were called out in the Parks and Open Space Plan, restroom, nature trails, farmers market, which really is just kind of representative of special events, kind of small community events, paved walking and biking trails, natural areas, this project hits on all 5 of those, right? It nails each of those 5 because of what the Earthworks Park and Mill Creek Canyon serve to achieve for the community. The heat map that we've got to the right here is the kind of park need, equity-based work that we did as part of the Parks and Open Space Plan. What you'll notice is it's kind of difficult to see in this graphic, but the heat that you see kind of show up here on the southeast end is highlighting some of the needs that we know we have in Southeast Hill where there's some park deficiency. Mill Creek Canyon has some of the highest recreational value potential in our system, but just because of the amount of acreage and the amount of different spaces that you could gain within that. So improving Mill Creek Canyon actually brings a whole lot of the city into a very good service level. So it's a really good target project for us because it hits all those points. Some of the priorities that are called out in the Parks and Open Space Plan, Earthworks and Mill Creek Canyon is a near-term project. It's a high dollar sign project, again, because of the amount of acreage that we need to cover and the amount of investment that needs to be made. It's item D here on the map. And this framework plan is going to build upon the priorities that were established in the 2022 Parks and Open Space Plan. So, creating a Tier 4 park, building out South Mill Creek Park, which is the new gateway and trailhead we called out in the Parks and Open Space Plan for the Mendel property, trails throughout Mill Creek Canyon, connections up and through Campus Park to 248th Street, and then connections from Mill Creek to 277th. So these are all ideas that have been in place for a very long time. We're just taking these ideas to the next step and trying to get them closer to reality. I'm going to tease some images through the presentation. This will all make sense as we get kind of towards the end. This is some graphic artwork that our consultants have done with us to kind of help tell a story. So you'll see it in transitions as we move through the slides here. This is a snapshot of the final framework plan. So this is kind of the punchline. This is the thing that you're going to see at the end of the plan. That's all the analysis, all the park investments, all kind of rolled into one graphic. There's a couple things I'd call out. Don't try and make sense of this one yet. We're going to step through it each one. But I think the things to say about it is high degree of complexity, right? This long stretch, 2.5 miles worth of parkland along a greenway, over 100 acres of parkland. You've got individual moments of investment that need to be made. We've got 5 different investment areas that are called out, a lot of trails that need to be improved. So we have a lot of information to get through here. And I think the other thing to call out that you can see on this plan is it looks beyond the parkland boundaries. This doesn't just look within the parcel lines of what is parkland. We're really looking at the edges and how do we interface with the community around us? How do we interface with the right-of-way? How do we utilize this space as not just a space for people to come and recreate as a space for people to move through to connect with other places? Because that's, I think, where the power is in this project, is connecting people to places. Some of the goals of the project, and these are all goals that we established early on in the community engagement. So history and culture, trail improvements, natural resources, health and connections, equity, implementation. These are the goals that we set, and a lot of them are really based in goals that we established really in the Parks and Open Space Plan. It's just kind of building upon those and customizing them to be a little bit more specific to this plan. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Carrie to talk about public engagement.
Hello once again this evening. So during the project, we engaged in person with 663 people through 12 community-wide events and 6 park-specific project events. Those park-specific events were held in the park, at the Kent Commons, and the Kent Downtown Library. We hosted exhibits where individuals of all ages could come and participate. The first round was a pair of towers. You can see them highlighted right here, that had question prompts that asked people to create maps for us and give them to us for the project, where they wanted to see improvements, what activities, and then to write on tags like these ones, what activities they like best about the park and what improvements they wanted to see. We also completed 2 surveys. You can see that right here, 2 online surveys. We had 323 responses, and the questions were asked in a series of 3 parts, being park use, visitor experience, and future visions. The data in the bottom in orange, you can see where the public workshop, those 6 project-specific events. We had 133 people participate. The maps that I just spoke about, there were 50 of those turned in at the end of this project, and 131 comment tags and comments were given to us throughout this process. The most challenging part of this engagement, however, was the question, wait, that's a park? I never knew that. So this amazing natural wonder feature that we have is so little known for people in our community that have not been here for 20 or more years. So, and although the outreach effort was citywide, most of the engagement we received through those projects were from those living right around the park and those who attend the library, the commons, and the senior center on a regular basis. I also want to talk about our online engagement. As you all know, engagekentparks.com. We use that regularly. So this shows that there were 22,000 people that went to the site, engagekentparks.com. There are 14,300 people that are aware of this project specifically, of the Mill Creek Canyon project. 8,000 people read something on that project page, and 326 people returned in something from that project page. So this graphic over here, you can see, this shows that when we finally got the engagement up and running, this is over the course of the entire project in months. The interest in this has not waned. It is continuing every day, all the time. People are still interested. They keep checking back and making sure that they know what's happening in this project. So all in all, we actively reached out to and engaged with 14,891 touch points on this project specifically. So now I know you're asking, what did we hear? There are 3 main takeaways were park use, visitor experience, and future vision. But what does that mean for Earthworks and Mill Creek Canyon specifically? For park use, those that visit the park both visit Earthworks and Mill Creek Canyon, not just one. That trail improvements were a top priority for most people who responded to our engagement requests. And that there is a lack of awareness about this wonderful park jewel that we have in Kent. Visitor experience. Visitors appreciate the biodiversity and the natural character of this park, and that the perception of the park can be changed as we start implementing programmed experiences such as bird walks, citizen science, school groups, and hiking tours. And it can be further improved through accessibility and wayfinding and connectivity to the surrounding neighborhoods. And then all of these would improve the awareness, use, and accessibility of the park. So on to the future vision, prioritizing access and circulation around and through the park as a means of physical support, like trail improvements, and bridges. And then provide residents and visitors with the opportunity to learn and engage about the environment and the history of Mill Creek Canyon through programmed opportunities and activities. And then a majority of those who engaged with us on this project said there must be a balance between community vision, natural resources, and maintenance. Essentially, responsible maintenance leads to sustained investment for this wonderful park. And I'm going to turn it back over to Terry.
Thank you, Carrie. Let me get caught up to her here. So we're about to enter the assessment section of the presentation. And what this really means is we had several topics that we explored in great detail with the consultants and with our partners across the city departments who played a role in developing the plan. So the first one to look at is Earthworks Park specifically. We know that this is a really important place. We know it has landmark status. We know that this is probably the reason that people come from out of town to come and see this place. It's still in people's landscape architecture class as a site visit to come and study how landform can be integrated into stormwater. So it's a really important site for us. there's over 40 years of planning documentation that's gone on. So back in 1982 was the first plan that was ever developed for Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks Park. So we're just we studied all these plans. We're just building on all of these iterations of planning. There's a lot of good ideas that are still within those plans that need to be implemented. So I think it's important to kind of note that we're not creating a whole lot of new concepts here. We're really building upon something that was created many, many years ago. Some of the challenges, and you'll kind of hear me talking about each of these assessment sections as challenges and opportunities. So kind of starting that trend here. Some of the challenges that we know we have with Earthworks Park is accessibility. The pathways in there don't meet current standards. Wheelchair accessibility is very poor. We know that needs to be improved. There's a lack of programming. Historically, there was quite a bit of special event programming that happened in Earthworks that brought people to the place. That's kind of gone away in many years, which I think is really driven by funding, both operational and programmatic funding. Maintenance has kind of fallen down through the years, which again I think is directly tied to lower programming, lower demand of park use on the space. And again, as Carrie said, awareness. People just don't know that this is a park. They don't know that it's a place for them to go and be out in nature. On the flip side, some of the opportunities that we see with taking on Earthworks Park is restoring the original design intent. So all the design is really there. It's about bringing that landscape back up to its original form, creating a new space for programs. So implementing the pieces like we've been doing in other parks and projects that we've been working on is building infrastructure that helps support program and makes that operation cheaper for us to invest in and maintain over time. And I think the big idea to talk about with Earthworks is relinking the Senior Center campus with Earthworks Park and making that one kind of contiguous park space. I think that really is a compelling idea. Regional connectivity. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Zoomed out view of Earthworks, but of Mill Creek Canyon and Earthworks Park. But really, this is an important link between East Hill and downtown. You know, we lack that gateway, that really important sort of multimodal connection between all the residents that live on the East Hill and the transit that lives downtown for people to get back and forth on the day-to-day. So I think calling out the importance of this greenway between things like the East Hill and the Green River Trail on the southeast end, connecting the 277th Street Trail up to Mill Creek Canyon and completing the linkage down to the Green River Trail and getting people access to all of the regional trail corridor that exists in the Kent Industrial Valley. On the northwest end, connecting Earthworks Park to the Senior Center and to downtown, and the grant application that I heard David Payne talk about earlier tonight. I think all these things link up very nicely to with the Mill Creek Master Plan that's unrolling tonight. Some of the challenges we'll talk about are awareness, again, I think is the biggest challenge. People don't know that it's there. They don't know that trails already exist in this space. They don't have a great awareness of how to access those. And then connections along Canyon. We know that Canyon Drive can be a challenging space to move through and across. And so I think it's understanding how Mill Creek Canyon fits into that puzzle. How do we help promote the movement of people through that greenway? Talked about the opportunities connecting 277th, connecting to regional trails, and that gateway between East Hill and downtown. So it's not just about connecting to other places, but getting people to connect to Mill Creek and Earthworks Park. So this zooms in and looks at Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks Park and the adjacencies around the single-family residential, the multifamily that's on the north end, the commercial near Target and Old Navy, that shopping center, and downtown, and starting to create these perforations between each of these surrounding communities and the park itself. We recognize that the signage, the trail access really is not where it should be today. That yes, there are great trails once you get in, but how do you even get there? How do you know that the trail is there in the first place? I think that's one of the big challenges that we face is have those limited access points that it has today and a lack of signage and wayfinding. Opportunities, I think really the biggest opportunity in my mind is being able to accommodate what I hope to see is an increased density. Again, just lines up perfectly with the things we heard from Kristen tonight about the need for increased density in our downtown and getting good access to recreation. We don't have a lot of parkland space in our downtown. It's pretty limited. Mill Creek Canyon is kind of the biggest piece of parkland that we have that's in close proximity to downtown, so it's a really important piece to the puzzle in that regard. And I think the other big opportunity is reducing local trips. If people don't have to get into their car to get to their local park, they're not having to get in their car to go to Morrill Meadows or go to East Hill North or whatever the case may be. If they can just walk out of their house and walk to Mill Creek Canyon to get their nature experience, to get their recreation needs fulfilled, that would be so great. Park access and trails. This talks about not the neighborhood connectivity piece, but more specifically about the trails that exist within the canyon and the need for additional trails. The orange line here on the outside represents spaces where we know we have very limited access. Things that would cause this would be things like steep slopes or Canyon Drive, and the fact that we have a large retaining wall that prevents us from being able to get access into the canyon. So those are spaces where we know access is very unlikely to ever really be achieved. But the green indicates places where we know we can either have access today or we could improve access in the future. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow and improve access to Mill Creek Canyon in the future. Really promoting positive trail ingress and egress, giving people the confidence to know that I can get into this trail system and I know the exit is just half a mile up and I can get back up and get out to the road and get back to my car. That's what gives people the confidence to know that they can make a day trip out of this and go have their recreational experience there. I think the other challenge to the existing trail system within Mill Creek is it's not really all ages and abilities yet. We know that there's really great hiking trails. If you've got hiking boots and you're able-bodied and you can go up and down steep hills, but that's not for everybody. It's not for mom with a stroller. It's not for a person who have mobility impairment. So we really need to create a system that accommodates all people. So that's a big part of it. I think another opportunity for us is additional trailheads and more signage and wayfinding. I think that's really going to be the ticket to getting people to use the trails that exist and the new trails that we intend to build. Stormwater systems, a lot of water comes into this space, not just from the dam upstream, but we know that there are outlets that feed water from the street into Mill Creek Canyon. It's a dynamic system. We know that Mill Creek in and of itself is a dynamic creek channel. It's constantly changing. The amount of sedimentation and flows that move through that canyon every year are, we've been going in and out of this canyon for a couple of years now, kind of documenting what we see, and it really truly is a dynamic system. It's constantly changing. The creek bed is changing. We're sort of trying to move the trail this way and that to accommodate those changes, but that's part of what makes it a really incredible place too, is because it is not static. It is something that's constantly changing. What we know also about the canyon itself is the character of the landscape is steep slopes and high degree of erosion. We know we have a washout, and that's going to be something that we're going to constantly need to kind of plan for and be able to address on a long-term operation and maintenance basis, is dealing with those erosive slopes and being able to deal with the high degree of sedimentation that flows through the creek channel. We were able to work with our Public Works Department on documenting places where we have water coming into the canyon. We don't have great controls over the quality of that water today, but I think that would be a goal or an opportunity for us, is to look at how we might be able to improve that in the future. And then looking at sedimentation control. That's another thing we heard from our stormwater group, is that they really need better controls for sedimentation through the canyon, and then also at Earthworks Park, where we have a current sediment pond that fills up each year. So there's a lot of opportunity with stormwater, green stormwater infrastructure, improving sedimentation control through the canyon, and working in partnership with our Public Works Department on all those priorities. Natural resources. This slide does not tell a great story, but I think it maybe is, it's telling you everything about the invasive species. So there's a lot of invasive species within the canyon, but it doesn't tell the other side of the story of the really incredible biodiversity that also lives within the canyon. Each of these hatched areas are places where we have documented with our natural resources team where we have invasive species. So there's a lot of work to do on an invasive species management front, but these big, broad swaths don't mean that the entire area is covered. It's just indicating that you have some amount of invasive species in this area. So that's some of the challenges that we know we have with the natural resources side. It's also just a very large acreage, so there's a lot of ground to cover, meaning you have a lot of space to manage over time. And our natural resources group was just formed. They've only been around for, I think, like about a year and a half. They're just getting their feet set, and they're not just working in Mill Creek. They're working in places like Clark Lake and Lake Fenwick and everywhere else that we have natural resources. So there's too little butter over too much bread, the expression. So the opportunities that we see here is really growing our volunteer events and green stewardship program, having more community events where we can get folks involved, and really creating that citizen stewardship that I think is important to managing large green spaces like this. Something that was pointed out to me about Mill Creek Canyon that I did not know, but it is habitat for species listed under the Endangered Species Act. So we have a lot of responsibility to protect this natural resource, not just for people, but for for animals too. And again, just walking through the canyon, and I know some of the council members were brave enough to join us on a canyon walk not too long ago, but there's incredible biodiversity that lives within the canyon today that really just begs to be experienced. So we're going to get into the improvement section. Brian's going to come up and talk about that. I just want to note that there's 5 investment areas, and we're going to have trail investments throughout. And yeah, I'll pass to you.
Starting the previous slide. And Carrie passed out at the beginning. She passed out those. So as we go through this section here, if it's too hard to see on the screen, you guys can look at the maps there. So, as Terry said, I'm Brian Higgins. I'm one of the project managers in the Parks Planning and Development Division. So I'm going to be talking about the proposed park improvements here at Earthworks in Mill Creek Canyon. So the framework plan looked at improvements at Earthworks Park, the trails within Mill Creek Canyon, and 3 other distinct improvement areas known as the plateau, a forest canopy, and upstream. And that's just the names that we're going to be referring to them throughout this the plan. Just for a little background, the existing trail network in the canyon today consists of a 2-mile main trail that runs the length of the canyon. And so concurrent to this kind of planning effort, we've been working with Reckord and on the main trail for the past 3 years. And we've been improving the trail tread and the trail width and just improving the overall trail conditions in the main trail. So I just wanted to point that out before we get too much further in here. This slide shows all the proposed new trails that are possible inside Mill Creek Canyon. The plan would look to use the existing main canyon trail that runs next to Mill Creek to create a series of loop trails. The great thing about Mill Creek Canyon is that with the varied topography here, we can provide several loop trail options and offer a variety of trail experiences. For instance, at Earthworks Park, the topography is fairly flat and allows for easy access for families with strollers or people with mobility impairments. As you move deeper into the canyon, the topography gets more difficult, offering something for people who desire a more challenging hike. To make these loop trails work, several new trails will need to be built, as well as a cross-canyon bridge and some low water crossings. So if you kind of orient yourself here at Earthworks here is at we'll call the north end. As we move up kind of to the middle of the screen here is kind of the place where we envision this cross-canyon bridge being. And then this would be roughly right across from Scenic Hill Elementary School, just to kind of give you an orientation of where that's kind of shown on the map there. So as we were working to plan these various routes, it was important for us to consider the types of trails that would be available at Earthworks Park and throughout the canyon. So to support this idea, we've developed these easy to understand trail typologies. And so the first one here on the far left is a easy urban path. This would be like the type of trails that are found at Earthworks Park today. This trail would be flat and paved and have minimal elevation gain. This is the type of trail that would be ideal for families or somebody with a mobility impairment. The next one there in the middle is a park trail. This would take advantage of existing sidewalks around the park and trails within the park that would be gravel. It would be a little bit more difficult, but not too much. And this type of experience would have, again, both paved and gravel trails and would feature really minimal elevation gain. And it would be ideal for a more moderate walk. And then the final one is kind of like a hiking trail. And this type would have a lot of elevation gain. It would be on packed earth. It would be very challenging. It would offer the most deepest nature experience that you can find within the canyon. So as we move forward with kind of planning these trail routes, what we're going to do is develop some wayfinding science that would help people to understand what trails would be best for their the experience level. So now we're going to start back at Earthworks Park. And it's important to remember that Earthworks is a King County landmark. So the landmarked area here is shown on this map in white. And so changes to the park inside the landmarked area would need to go through the King County Landmarks Commission. So the improvements planned for Earthworks Park are realignment to the pathways to improve accessibility within the park, a refresh to landscaping in the park to bring it back to its original condition. We look to replant the trees that used to exist around the perimeter of the park, and also look to update the park restroom and replace park fixtures, including benches and interpretive signage. So this project would basically just give Earthworks a facelift and not really change anything about what it looks like today. Outside of Earthworks Park, each of the improvement areas that we're going to look at are going to have a phase 1 and phase 2 design. And the idea behind the phased approach is that the first phase activates new use, and the second phase builds on the success of the first phase. So this is the meadow area. This is directly kind of outside the landmarked area at Earthworks Park. And this is back, if you're familiar with Earthworks Park, near the settling pond that is there today. So the first phase would introduce nature play and give users a reason to go this area of the park. People also enjoy the ability to touch water and access the creek, and improved creek access would be planned in this location. This is also here at the kind of the very back where that little pink dot is where the trail starts. So there we look to install a trail kiosk with wayfinding signage. And then again, the second phase here is just looking to build on the first phase and would offer a few additional park features. In this phase, we looked at specifically some outdoor classroom space, and we see this area of the park as a place where local school students could come from nearby schools and learn about the ecology of the creek, or go on a short hike in the canyon to learn about the flora and fauna of the canyon. So as we're moving up the canyon, this is the plateau, and just to orient you a little bit, as you're driving up Canyon Drive and you're coming to Campus Park, if you just look off to your right and kind of down the hill a little bit, directly kind of across, a little bit below Kent Meridian, the field there is where the plateau is. So the first phase of the proposed improvements would add some loop trails here, would improve access to the main canyon trail. It would add a small entrance plaza off Canyon Drive as well as an overlook into the canyon. Again, the idea behind the first phase here is to just activate some positive use and give people a reason to be in this part of the canyon. The second phase at the plateau would look to build on the success of the first phase and offer additional expanded plaza space that could be used for a variety of purposes, offer some new nature play, and additional park seating. If use and demand increase in this area significantly, we might consider the possibility of a pedestrian overpass for better access to Mill Creek Canyon from Campus Park and Kent Meridian High School. As we move further up the canyon, we arrive at what we're calling Forest Canopy. To orient you to this area, this is directly behind the retail center on East Hill that includes Target and the newly opened Harbor Freight. As you may recall, a few years ago, the Parks Department, in conjunction with the Public Works Department, closed 100 Place South, which is the road that runs directly behind this area. The first phase of Forest Canopy would use the closed road to activate this linear space more fully. We would look to activate the area with modest improvements that are easy to build and affordable to maintain. A small bluff trail would be added in this area to start to draw people into the canyon, and potential art installation like paint on pavement and some bench seating and interpretive signage would also be added. The second phase again builds on the first phase and would add additional features to the forest canopy like seating, nature play, expanded trails, an overlook, and entry plaza. Phase 2 would really largely rely on redevelopment of the adjoining retail center before this could be implemented. So in this portion of the plan, we kind of highlighted this section that's in white here as a kind of an opportunity that's not on our property, but a future opportunity that could exist if there was some sort of retail redevelopment in this area that would open up both benefits for both the private ownership and the public use here to kind of reintegrate the canyon with the retail center. And so right now it's kind of like they have their backs kind of turned to the canyon. So we would hope to see something that would, have them more face the canyon. Okay, so the final place is here at Upstream Park. So this is at the very south end of Mill Creek Canyon Park off of 267th here. This park would be located on the two properties that we acquired, the Ransom and Mendel properties in 2018 and 2022. So the first phase would look to add parking, a restroom, an accessible loop path, an open field, space for outdoor learning. This park would really most importantly serve as that important southern trailhead for Mill Creek Canyon. Right now there isn't really good developed access here at this far south end, so this is a critical portion of this plan. And then again, the second phase would build on the first phase and add additional features like nature play areas and a children's playground, a park shelter, and plaza space. I'm going to turn it back over to Terry to talk about the funding plan.
Okay. Bring us down the home stretch here. Let me get caught up to him. So like I said earlier in the presentation, we need to be responsible to the money that we have on the capital side and also be able to talk about what this will take to build today and then what it will take to maintain into the future. So we'll talk about the maintenance here in a moment, but just want to emphasize again, 10 to 20 year plan. There's a lot of big visionary stuff in this plan. We hope to achieve some of it. We are not so naive to think we're going to achieve all of it overnight. And I just want to make sure people understand just because we're writing it in this plan does not necessarily mean that it's going to happen tomorrow. These things take a lot of time to plan and develop, and it's not necessarily held to a 20-year horizon either. So with all that being said, we have broken it down into a 10-year plan and a 10 to 20-year plan, just to break it into some buckets financially. So those are the things that you see in the yellow shade here are things that we feel comfortable being fiscally constrained based on the amount of capital we have coming into our program. You know, looking 6 years and beyond, we think that these are projects that we could reasonably afford to accomplish if all of the project management resources were perfectly aligned. We had enough people to work on all of the different projects that we have in our queue right now. The money were there, the operations and maintenance money were there to support it. Everything, all the stars would have to be perfectly aligned, but we think that these are the projects that we could reasonably accomplish in a sort of near to midterm horizon. So projects that are called out here are trails and trailheads, and this really just builds upon the work that we've already been doing with Earth Corps every year, but takes it to the next level of looking at structures, low water crossings, making more substantial trail improvements throughout the canyon, looking at the edges of the canyon and building closer to the right-of-way, partnering with Public Works on projects like that. So that's what the trails and trailheads represents. Also the trailheads, so signage, the wayfinding, making all of those nodes next to the trail that get people access into the park. We talked about Earthworks Park, $2.4 million for that project. Again, mostly a landscape renovation project, taking that park and returning it to its former glory and returning all the facilities that belong there back to the level that was originally visioned for that space. I think about the project as having the anchors on either end, and I think I've said this before in front of council, but it's important that we have the existing anchor down at Earthworks with a restroom and a parking lot. We need that anchor on the other end at upstream so that people can access it from East Hill. So that's why the upstream project is called out in this 10-year horizon, $2 million for that project. And then more modest improvements at Meadow and Plateau. Those projects are really just about creating visibility and access and some basic landscape improvements, giving a reason for people to be there, with $1 million, $2 million, and then $1 million for forest canopy. I think the last point I would make about the 10-year plan is it was really important, I think, that we get the Cross Canyon Bridge in there. It's going to take a lot of work to get there. It's obviously a big structural project. We also have to be very mindful of the natural place, right? Like running a bridge right through this natural resource could be devastating. So it's going to take a lot of careful thought and precision as to where that bridge is going to go. But that's the piece that opens up all the trail connectivity, both across the neighborhood connectivity of connecting the retail with the residential, but also creating all these loops is really hinges on that bridge connection. So it's plugged in there in sort of this midterm for us to be able to accomplish it sooner rather than later. So we have $16 million of capital investment that's called out in phase one. And then we have those things that extend beyond into the 10 to 20 year or beyond horizon, with kind of the next level of investments that would be made, phase 2 for each one of these projects, for upstream, meadow, plateau, forest canopy. There's a couple items called out here at the bottom, and they have TBD next to them. So I just want to call out the Titus Festival Street concept, the Canyon Drive overpass. These are big ideas. It's definitely thinking about the street in a totally different way than we've thought about it before. And we don't really want to attach numbers to those yet, because I think it really deserves more engineering work to be able to say what it's going to cost. But it's just something that we wanted to get into the plan. We want to start to look at it more. It needs to be analyzed further in the next TMP update to say, are these priorities balanced against all the other stuff we have going on in the city? Not my responsibility to make that call, but just calling out the things that we heard through the engagement process and some big ideas that are at least worth considering. So we have $16 million in the 10-year plan, and then 16 plus, because we're not really estimating those two that would be in that 20-year plan. Oh, I guess the other thing to say too about this, phase 1 is really all about low-hanging fruit, getting some positive movement. And Brian kind of touched upon this in his presentation, but we're mindful of what the place is today. It's not a place that people go to generally. Has some negative use in it. We all kind of understand that there's been a lot of camp activity and some negative uses that have gone on over the years. So I think the plan is very much responsible to not over-investing initially, that tries to get some positive use and some positive momentum to move forward. And then phase 2 comes in and says, okay, now once we have acknowledged that there is positive use, we're seeing people coming back to the park, it's being programmed, we're hearing a lot of positive things about it, only then would we really look at the next round of investments. Operations and maintenance. We had a subconsultant that looked at operations and maintenance. They took the data that we've been developing internally through our asset management system and looking at park uses and touches, and kind of developed a horizon of what the O&M investment would need to be compared to all these projects. There's a lot of data that exists behind this, but really the point that needs to be made is that as you bring on these new parks, so forest canopy, upstream, plateau, and really, to some extent, a lot of the trail connectivity between, these are all brand new amenities. None of these exist in our system today. There is no operation and maintenance resources to support those functions. So if we're going to build these new places and we're going to be sending new operations and maintenance staff to go daily servicing, emptying trash cans, restoring trails, all those daily park activities, we're going to have to support it with operations and maintenance funding. So as you build these projects and you start to see some of these projects come online, when we see starting to get more trails and trailheads completed, we've calculated at this point is whenever we've sort of breached that 2080 hours, that magic number of 2080, which is equivalent of one full-time position. And then you start to build more of these projects, and you get more hours associated with the operations and maintenance, and then you trigger that second FTE. So what we're seeing is that in total, over the first phase of work, you would really need to get 2 full-time equivalent maintenance workers around the year 2031 if all these projects are built kind of on the timeline or horizon that we've set for this. That could shift and change if priorities shift and change, but just generally speaking, kind of trying to throw some numbers on the table to have a conversation around, we think it's 2 full-time equivalent maintenance workers. That number could grow in the future. As we get into phase 2, we know that it brings in more improvements, but really the heavy lift on operations and maintenance is establishing the park initially. Adding a few additional amenities here and there, another outlook, another bench, that's not really going to move the needle too much on the operation and maintenance and the daily servicing demand. So that's why you see so much of that operation and maintenance front-loaded in the first 10 years. That being said, if over time we see a huge influx of users, or we're adding amenities that were never anticipated before, certainly we would see the need for additional O&M out in the horizon beyond 10 years, but it doesn't really make sense for us to try and estimate that right now because there's just too many variables associated with it. So we stopped at kind of a 10-year and just said if we sustain that over time, that would be the number. And looking at it in 2024, the increase based on trails that are being built and everything else, around 22,000, and then that 2034 number, which is the end of the 10-year and going into the 20-year, would be an annual increase of operation maintenance of $591,000. So that equates to 3 new parks, 1 park improvement, which is Earthworks Park, and additional trails and trailhead improvements. That's what you get out of that deal with the investment of about $500,000 of additional operation and maintenance resources. So 2 parts to the puzzle here. You must fund the capital, but you also must fund the operation and maintenance at the same time to make these facilities successful long term. Okay, next steps. As of tonight, we are entering the public comment period for the final draft, final framework plan draft. So Carrie somehow in the system scheduled it to be posted on Engage Kent Parks at 5 o'clock. So it's up now on engagekentparks.com. The draft plan is there. It's available for public comment. It's actually the same process we used for the East Hill North project, where you're able to navigate the PDF and drop a pin and give us your comment and tell us what you think about the project. So that will be open for the next month for public comments. We'll be collecting those and then integrating those to the extent that we can, and then that process will close. And then we hope to publish that plan on the 1st, April 1st. At that same time, and similar to what we did with the Parks and Open Space Plan, we'll also be publishing a story map. One of the things that we really had a lot of success with the Parks and Open Space Plan that we want to try and repeat here is to try and create some avenues, some communication tools for people who don't deal in planning documents every day, who don't really understand a lot of the graphics that we're flashing up on the screen, to be able to access this information in a better way. So that online story map is one part of that. We'll talk to the second part of it here in a second. But those two pieces will be published hopefully on April 1st. And then just a couple other quick updates about things ongoing. We had the trail washout. We're happy to report that we've kind of cleared some permitting hurdles on that. We're going to be going to construction on that this summer, 2024, with Reckord. We've got a good approach to dealing with that. So that'll get the trail connectivity restitched together around the Legion property. And then kind of talking about what happens after this plan is done and published, what would be the first things that we would work on. We would immediately jump into planning and design on upstream earthworks and continuing trail improvements. So those are the projects we see as being kind of the first out of the gate projects. Again, creating the two anchors on either end and finishing the trail network between. That is the first step to getting the ball rolling towards a positive future for Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks Park. And then now, so again, this is the final framework plan. It has all these pieces and parts. It has a legend associated with it, which is, doesn't always land with a lot of our community who are not English speakers as a first language and don't have time to get into these deep documents. So what we did is worked with our consultant to create a graphic novel, basically, of the plan. And so Carrie's going to hand that out to you tonight. You'll be the first ones to see it. We're presenting this to you tonight. The intent is to create something fun, to take something that can be kind of administrative, bureaucratic, and turn it into something that's easy to read and kind of fun to read. So you're going to find all the same elements that I just presented to you, but in a graphic format and through storytelling and narrative. And so we worked with our consultants to create this piece, and it takes this, which is kind of difficult to decipher, and it turns it into something more like this, which I think is really fun and interesting. So I encourage you to take this home, read it to your kids, read it with your husband or wife, read it to your grandkids, or just read it yourself. That's what I'll be doing for sure. And we're really excited to use this as a piece to educate. Again, awareness being kind of one of the major hurdles that we had on this plan. We don't even know what Earthworks Park is. What is Mill Creek Canyon? Never heard of it. We hope that this can be kind of the start to the conversation with the community of what this place is today and what it can be tomorrow. So we're really excited to present that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Terry, Carrie, and Brian for the presentation. I'm looking forward to this project. I think it's very, very exciting when it's complete in many years. Councilmember Boyd.
Yes, the project looked really inspiring, and I'm looking forward to it being built. But right now, I'm looking at the non-existence of restrooms, making me want to use the restroom. Where's the bathrooms? Are we going to have any built? I don't see none on here. I just see one proposed.
Yeah, so Earthworks Park has an existing restroom. So we have a restroom today down at Earthworks Park. It kind of goes off and online as we deal with nuisance issues. There's a lot of vandalism and break-ins that happen with that facility, but the renovation project will bring that facility up to our current standards for restrooms. It's kind of outdated. It doesn't have the security measures that we typically put in place. So there will be a restroom there. And then we're going to install a new restroom at the upstream. So at either end of the canyon, you'll have a bathroom that you'll be able to use. And then I think there are opportunities actually. So another place where there is a bathroom is Scenic Elementary, which is a park just off of the bridge connection, also has a bathroom. So there'll be 3 total bathrooms that will be in proximity of.
Okay, I heard you mention 2. You was talking about negative use. I was thinking that's probably why you weren't having a lot of restrooms built, because of negative use.
Well, I was just giving the negative use as a reason why Earthworks Park bathroom tends to go offline sometimes. I know it does go up and down. You know, we've had challenges with that bathroom in the past. It's not a reason to not build bathrooms, though. This is a core amenity that we have to provide in our park system. It's just the reality.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Terry, Carrie, and Brian. I know this is a huge project. It's been 2 years in the making. You had 12 events to engage the public. You put so much time and thought in this. I mean, look at this.
This is fantastic.
This is amazing. Great job. Congratulations. This is awesome.
It's the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to what's to come. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. I think we are done. Thank you, team. We are adjourned.